Chapter 1. In the Silence of Intimacy. Our meetings do not happen in a context of spirituality, teaching, or understanding. For all these elements belong to progressive paths. Life events are the way, a way which appears and disappears in the same moment. There is no room for accomplishment, for ownership. As long as you don't expect an informative answer, any question is welcome. Is it possible to know the appropriate moment to change a situation when you think you can improve it? Or do you need to let it do its own thing, to let it happen without action? Can one work on this? What you can do is to become aware that you cannot choose between acting and being available to the situation. It isn't in your control. Sometimes you are able to listen to a situation. You will then be free to act or not to act. The situation will be the action. On other occasions, you will only be able to witness your lack of listening, the ideological commentary that you superimpose onto the situation. You pretend to know what is better. This pretense itself is an action. You cannot decide to react or to listen. Life doesn't grant you such freedom. Witness the moments of listening as well as the moments of reaction. The idea of a personal autonomy that would allow us to act or not act is a fairy tale. I am touched by a word which you have used, non-accomplishment. Could you say that one can spend his life succeeding or failing, and that it would also be a path of accomplishment? Because this non-accomplishment leaves a bitter taste and brings up a lot of questions about the meaning of one's life. You can spend your whole life imagining success or failure. All this is only ideology. You cannot succeed or fail at anything. One day, you will be tired of imagining. At that moment, your imaginary successes and failures, your fantasies of future successes and failures, will also disappear. That is the accomplishment, and there is no other. That is what we need to let take root in us. No room for regret, hope, or bitter feelings. All that is a form of agitation. Stay peaceful, clear. Life is happening inside of you. You are not in life. If there is no accomplishment, is there no evolution either? There is no psychological evolution. The old man is not more than the child. He is another expression of life. He is not less either once he loses his strength, his intelligence, his memory, and his health. When the old man loses his touch and his memory, he becomes less aware, doesn't he? What you are referring to is relative awareness, as in fact, he wasn't fully aware. He imagined succeeding and failing, which is lack of awareness. He imagined that he had a name, that he could decide what to do. He imagined his entire life. The fact that he now forgets this imaginary reality does not mean that he is lesser. He recovers something essential, something without memory, without ownership. Observe how painful it is for us to see an old man who has become senile. Why is it so difficult? What scares me? My identity is threatened. I realize that I too will become like that, and that I won't be able to pretend my success, my failures. I will have to renounce my dear life, my dear identification with me. That is what hurts. Leave that old man alone with your projections, your fears. The old man is doing well. We are the ones who are scared. A salmon at the end of his life is not less magnificent than at its peak. Degeneration, on one level, is part of our biological process. There is as much beauty in someone who is dying as in a newborn. If there is no accomplishment, what is the use of my consciousness? Consciousness has no use. It is not an object designed to provide you with psychological stimulation. It is not a red car, a husband, or a dog. It is not here to serve. It is your fundamental emotion. It pushes you to constantly look for yourself through all situations. The word consciousness is poorly understood. In the East, they talk about consciousness without an object. There is no such thing as being conscious. The consciousness of people who want to die consciously is of little significance. What gets realized at the moment of death is of a whole different order. The ability to die consciously depends on the functional capacity of your brain. If you get clubbed over the head, you will not die consciously, but you won't miss anything. The consciousness of something is a functional consciousness. It is like a leg to walk on. That consciousness has no substance. Consciousness with a capital C, that is something else. If I manage to be aligned with consciousness, can I reach essence? Try, for just a moment, not to be aligned with consciousness. What else could you be other than consciousness? Consciousness is yourself when you stop looking for something, when you stop pretending that you have the freedom to be aligned or misaligned. In your silence, between two thoughts, two perceptions, in deep sleep, and at all times, because time appears in consciousness, your life is in perfect agreement with consciousness. Give up every ideological commentary on your life. Your knowledge about life prevents you from seeing how perfect it is. There is nothing to change. Your life changes. That is life. You don't have to align yourself with anything. Otherwise, you will always feel misaligned. Wanting to be aligned is fear. Fear of what? The cause of fear is imaginary. At some point, you stop shaking. What is showing up is alignment. When I don't call it positive or negative anymore, success or failure, what shows up is nothing but myself, my resonance. There lies true alignment. It is not the alignment of a subject toward an object. It is a total alignment without separation. It is alignment with your body when it hurts or when it works. Alignment with life, with what it has to offer, with no demand to accomplish, to get anything. It is extraordinary to listen. That transcends what you are listening to. Listening is deeply aligning with life. To be without demand, without expectation, for a moment, is the simplest thing in the world. It connects you with every being, every world. There lies symbiosis. If you try to align with something, whatever it is, what you align with is an ideology. If you are Muslim, you align with Sharia or your Tariqa. If you are a Buddhist, you align with the Sangha or the Dharma. If you are an atheist, you stand behind your concepts. That kind of alignment has very little value. You need to align with what shows up in the moment, but that you cannot do. It is grace which calls you, in which you turn down at every moment because you want to be aligned with the next moment. Observe the mechanism. The emotion that arises in me, that is what I need to align with. There is nothing else. Yes to being without expectations from ourselves. But what about expectations from the outside? You need to love them. It is normal that your dog expects his meal, that your lover, your husband, your child, your father, your boss, your employee, all expect something. But you are going to realize that you are not here to fulfill the expectations of others. You are here, in the end, to inspire non-expectation in those around you. Sometimes your environment will be satisfied. Sometimes it will be frustrated. You need to respect that. It needs both. Your child needs to be both spoiled and disappointed. Its maturity depends on both the yes and the no. Your friend needs the same thing. So does your camel. You don't need to feel guilty. You are not here to fulfill your neighbor's expectations. There will always be a neighbor who finds you too tall and another who finds you too short. Respect each of them. Some will like you, some will dislike you. All of them are right. Depending on their emotional state, they see you one way or another. At some point, you do not feed from your neighbor's projections anymore. You respect him in his hatred as much as in his love. It is a projection. He is only talking to himself. You understand intimately why, when he sees you, he feels such hatred and wants to strangle you, or he feels such love and wants to embrace you. He cannot do otherwise. It is like the dogs who want to either bite you or lick you. You are not here to teach the dog that wants to bite you that he shouldn't, nor to explain to the one that licks you that he projects a security on you which he should find in himself. You respect the dog who sees this security in you and licks you as much as the one who is scared and wants to bite your throat. You act according to the situation from respect. If you don't have a problem with yourself, you will not have any with society. Society is clear, perfect, except if you live in expectation and intention. There lies conflict. As long as you want the environment to be different, you will be dissatisfied. If my husband could become exactly who I want him to be, the next day something else would be missing. What I am asking from my husband, from my camel, is myself. Something that no camel can give me. The moment I do not expect anything from anyone, including from myself, I realize that listening is my security, my bliss, my satisfaction. I do not need to be listened to, loved, or hated anymore. I understand. I respect the way the world sees me. It has its reasons. The environment does not create any psychological hurt. If it triggers the slightest difficulty in me, this means that I carry a form of judgment. I see it, and I come back to myself. Instead of living with reality, I think that the environment should be different. The environment is what it is. If you don't agree with reality, you have a problem. Not with it, but with yourself. Look clearly within. Realize that your husband, your boss, your dog can't help but feel what they feel, act as they act. Through this respect, this love of reality, you become available again. Do you believe that parents can accept reality when they have a son who smokes too much hashish and who ruins his health one way or another? Are these parents too violent when they attempt to intervene and change the situation? Depending on your past, your parents, the era you were born in, the circles you have been a part of, you have developed the absolute belief that hashish is either horrific or harmless. You cannot help but act on this prejudice. You have no choice in the matter. You must accept it. Here, we do not suggest pushing one belief or the other, but noticing that your projection on hashish, or anything else for that matter, depends on your cultural, intellectual, or other conditioning. You have read newspapers, experimented, met some people, studied. You have adopted certain points of view, according to which you act. To accept means to listen. To listen means to know nothing. If you reach the listening we are talking about here, in an instant, you free yourself from everything you know about hashish and about your son. In this absence of judgment, what is left? Non-separation. This emotion you share with the child. There, you are going to find an appropriate expression. What you are going to tell your son does not count. What counts is the way you will speak, the timing of what you will say. In your listening, you will feel the appropriate day, the moment, the way you talk to your son. You will not seek to convince him to do what you think he should, but to touch in him a space of resonance in which he will be able to hear what you say, so that what he hears is going to touch him, to have an effect. Then, depending on his maturity, depending on whether he is intelligent or stupid, depending on his whole life, he might resonate with what you will have transmitted, because you have transmitted a listening, an invitation to look into the situation. But if you want to transmit information, you will remain in a very limited domain. You will tell him that you have read 5 books which prove that hashish is bad for you. If he is not stupid, he will bring you 10 more, showing that it is not. No deepening is possible that way. The only thing to do with a child is to invite him to listen to the situation. How does he feel when he takes hashish? Psychologically, physically? How does he perceive his environment? Bring him to see clearly what this implies. The less knowledge you transmit, the more he will be able to listen, to deepen, and to draw his own conclusions. If you tell him, "I forbid you to take any," he will take it elsewhere. You need to allow him to understand, to listen, to look at how he feels in this or that circumstance. This requires from you the humility to not know. Listen to him. Listen to his distress, to his joy. To put an end to this or that is pointless. The child will stop smoking hashish and start drinking. He will stop drinking, but will start seeing prostitutes, etc. The problem is not there. The problem is to bring the person within their capacity to a place of clear vision. That way, you avoid the usual conflict between generations when parents pretend to know, for then the child can then reply, "Is your life such a success? Are you so completely happy to claim to be able to teach me?" You will quickly run out of arguments. So, rather than relay secondhand information, it is better to explore the subject with him. Sharing your fears with vulnerability requires a lot of listening, a lot of humility. But they are your fears, not necessarily his. The child can hear your fears. If you tell him, "You need to be afraid," he will laugh at you, because rolling a joint doesn't scare him. If you say, "I am afraid when I see you smoke," it's already more sincere. He can hear that. If you state, "If you do that, you will run into problems," he has already done it, and nothing happened to him. This discourse is useless. So, you speak about your fears, not his. You speak about what is difficult for you, not about what is difficult for him. For that, you cannot know. Through your honesty, he will find his own. And maybe he will share certain things that push him to smoke or behave in a way that concerns you. All this comes from listening, from not knowing. All religions transmit knowledge. You can see the results. Every war comes from the pretense of knowing what is right. In a space of humility, no conflict is possible. That is true on the geopolitical level as much as on the individual one. Is philosophy also knowledge? There is no need for philosophy. Simply listen. Soon you will discover that when you think you know something, your breathing becomes difficult. Life is designed to question your knowledge, to make your breathing harder and harder until you choke. Then grace arrives. You give up your knowledge. Letting go happens, and you breathe more freely. You only breathe well when you don't know anything anymore, when you die to the situation. Knowledge gives a feeling of limited breathing. The more mature you become, the less satisfied you are with objective knowledge. You realize that all knowledge is imaginary.